today, and honestly, I still don't feel like recording. I don't have the YouTube personality battery fully charged, but I made a promise to myself that I was going to post every day for 90 days. And today is one of those days where the promise is truly being tested, y'all. Not because something dramatic happened, not because the world is ending, but just because I simply don't feel like it. I know that you can relate. And that's what I want to talk about today because adulting is not just about paying bills, going to work, doing laundry, and trying to figure out why groceries cost the same as a luxury handbag, okay? Adulting is also learning how to keep promises to yourself when nobody is watching. So today we're going to have a softer, shorter, more honest conversation. And I'm going to read a little bit from my book and reflect on the message behind Adulting is Ghetto. And then we're going to talk about what it means to keep showing up for yourself, even when you're tired, when you're unmotivated, or you're just not in the mood. Okay? Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kiara Ivy, aka Kiara the Concrete Rose. And around here we talk about lifestyle design, personal growth, adulting, singlehood, child-free living, and just soft life strategy and location independence. Anything that is related to building the lifestyle that you actually want to live. Okay, and today is a real one. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I woke up inspired, energized, moisturized, hydrated, and just ready to preach to the people. That is not it. Today I was not feeling it. I thought about skipping. I thought about saying I'll just post it tomorrow. I thought about giving myself a very reasonable sounding excuse because let's just be honest, we can always make excuses sound responsible when we want to. We can say, I need rest. I don't want to force it. I don't want to post something that isn't perfect. And sometimes those things are valid. Rest is valid. Not forcing yourself is valid. Having standards is valid, but I also know myself and I know the difference between honoring my body and negotiating with my resistance. When I pledged Delta, back in the day, they used to make us recite this poem, and it said, excuses are tools of the weak and incompetent that build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness, and those who specialize in them seldom amount to anything. Therefore, we do not use excuses. And every single time that, even in my adult life where I found myself wanting to give an excuse as to why I can't do something that I promised myself I would do, I quietly recite that poem in the back of my head. But today I had to ask myself, am I truly unable to show up or am I uncomfortable showing up imperfectly? And that question dragged me a little bit, I'm not going to lie, because the truth is I can show up today. Maybe not with a 30-minute masterpiece, maybe not with my highest energy, maybe not with the most polished structure, but I can definitely show up. And sometimes that is the whole lesson, right? So I want to talk about consistency. Let's talk about it because I think that, truthfully, I think that we romanticize consistency when we are planning the goal, right? When we first set the goal, it feels really exciting, right? You get the notebook, you write the plan, you imagine the results, you see the future version of yourself thriving and doing the damn thing, right? And you're like, yes, this is my season. I'm locked in, I'm disciplined, I'm becoming her. And then day whatever comes and the motivation wanes, right? Like the novelty has completely worn off. Life is lifing. Your energy is freaking low. Your hair is not doing what you want it to do, hence the hat. Okay, you don't have the perfect idea. And now the goal is staring at you like, so what are we doing? Are we doing this or not? Right? And that's the moment consistency actually begins. Not when you feel inspired, not when it's convenient, not when you have the perfect setup, not when the algorithm is clapping for you, because I'll be honest with you, this algorithm is really not giving, okay? I'm looking at these stats over the last 6 days that I've been consistent with posting on here, and all of the traffic that I see coming to it, coming to these videos is the traffic that I sent. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to quit because of that. I don't really care about that. But I'm just saying consistency begins when the emotional high wears off and you still have to decide whether your word to yourself actually means something. And, let me be clear. I'm not saying run yourself into the ground. I'm not saying ignore burnout. I'm not saying never rest because y'all know I believe in a soft life with systems. Okay, but I am saying that sometimes we use I don't feel like it as a reason to abandon something that matters to us. And that is where we have to be honest because consistency is not always cute. Sometimes consistency is low energy. Sometimes it's messy. It's a short video. It's reading something you already wrote and adding a reflection, you know? Or it's showing up with a hoodie with some water and a prayer. I'm hot as hell in this room right now. I'm sweating. It's crazy, all right? But sometimes consistency is just saying, I don't have the full thing today, but I have something, and something counts, right? So now here's the other side of it. Do not turn your promise into punishment. Right? This is very important because ambitious women can be real good at weaponizing our own goals against ourselves. We set the goal because we want to grow. Then, somewhere along the way, the goal becomes another reason to beat ourselves up, right? Another thing to feel behind on, another thing to prove, another way to measure whether we are worthy, disciplined, serious, consistent, or good enough. And no, absolutely not. We are not doing that. The promise should support your growth. It should not become an abusive relationship with your own ambition, right? So today I had to remind myself the commitment is to post every day. The commitment is not to be perfect every day. The commitment is not to have the same energy every day. The commitment is not to produce a viral worthy masterpiece every single day. The commitment is just to show up. And showing up can have range, right? Some days it's a full deep dive video and I'm like on one. And some days it's story time. Some days it's a book excerpt that I'm going to give you all. Some days it's a reflection. Or, let's be honest, it's sometimes it's just a I almost didn't post today conversation like we're having right now, right? It's talking about the thing that's on my mind that was going to keep me from actually showing up. But that still counts. And I need somebody watching this to apply that to whatever promise that you made to yourself. Maybe you promised yourself you'd work out. Maybe today that means a full gym session, but maybe today it means a 10-minute walk. Maybe you promised yourself you'd write. Maybe today that means 2,000 words. But maybe today it means one honest paragraph, right? Maybe you promised yourself you'd clean your home. Maybe today that means a full reset, but maybe today it means clearing one surface. Maybe you promised yourself you'd manage your money. Maybe today that means building a full budget, but maybe today it means checking your balance and not avoiding the truth. The point is, adjust the delivery. Do not abandon the promise. Don't throw away the whole mission. That is how you build self trust. Okay. So, this is where I want to bring in Adulting is Ghetto because the whole concept of that book is about the reality that adulthood will humble you. It is not always glamorous, it's not always organized, it's not always giving soft life. Sometimes adulting is sitting with the fact that you made a promise when you were motivated and now you have to keep it when you are tired. Sometimes adulting is realizing nobody is coming to force you to become the woman you said you wanted to become. Sometimes adulting is just learning that self discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It is about being honest with yourself. So I want to read a little excerpt or and reflect on this idea. So if y'all, whoever, if you're new to my channel and you don't even know what I'm talking about, I wrote a book. It's called Adulting is Ghetto, and it's a no BS guide to organizing your life, managing your money, and getting your shit together. Okay, and so it's on Amazon. If you want it, I'm not trying to promote you to buy it right now, because I really am doing this because I want to talk about this particular piece. But chapter 7 is called "You Don't Need More Discipline, You Need Less Friction," and it's on page 125 of the book. So I'm going to read. At this point in our adult lives, a lot of us have been sold the same tired explanation for why things keep feeling hard. We need to be more disciplined with our money, more disciplined with our time, more disciplined with our routines, our eating, our cleaning, our follow through, our whole damn lives. And listen, discipline is important, no doubt about it. I am not about to sit here and tell you that consistency, intention, and self control do not matter. They do. But a lot of us are not struggling primarily because we lack discipline. We are struggling because our lives have too much friction. That is a different problem. And the reason that distinction matters is because the solution changes depending on what we believe the real issue is. If we think the problem is discipline, we usually respond by trying to become stricter, harder, more intense, more demanding, more locked in. We talk to ourselves rougher. We make more rules. We create more ambitious plans. We try to force ourselves into a level of consistency that our actual life setup is not built to support. Then, when that does not work, we assume the problem is us. That is where a lot of unnecessary self blame comes from. Because friction can look like a discipline problem when we do not know how to spot it. Let's say we keep forgetting to pay something on time. We tell ourselves we need to be more responsible, but maybe the real issue is that there is no bill system, no reminder, no calendar alert, no automation, and no clear place where financial information lives. That is not a discipline issue, that is friction. Or maybe we keep ending up with takeout because we are not disciplined enough to cook. But maybe the real problem is that our kitchen is disorganized, our groceries were bought with no plan, nothing is thawed, there are no easy backup meals in the house, and by the time we think about food, we are already hungry and irritated. Again, that is not just a self control problem, that is friction. Or maybe we keep avoiding paperwork, laundry, errands, budgeting, or inbox cleanup and calling ourselves procrastinators. But if the task feels confusing, scattered, emotionally loaded, inconvenient, poorly timed, or just bigger than it needs to be, what we are often experiencing is not simply laziness, it is resistance created by friction. Friction is anything that makes a task harder to start, harder to complete, harder to repeat, or harder to maintain that it needs to be. And baby, a whole lot of us have built lives full of friction. Too many steps, too many decisions, too much clutter, too little planning, too little visibility, too much dependence on memory, too many open loops. Too many things with no proper place, no proper system, and no clear time to get done. That kind of setup will wear you out. And the wild part is that once we get used to friction, we stop noticing it. We just think life is supposed to feel like this. We assume adulthood naturally comes with a certain amount of constant drag, confusion, and unnecessary complication. So instead of redesigning what is not working, we keep trying to become stronger than the drag. That is backwards. Sometimes the answer is not becoming a harder person. Sometimes the answer is building an easier system. That is a huge grown woman shift, because the way a lot of us were taught to approach life is basically this: if it is not working, try harder, be tougher, be more disciplined, be more accountable, push through, get it together. And yes, accountability matters. But if every single solution requires us to squeeze more willpower out of an already tired mind, body, and nervous system, then we are building our life around force instead of support. That is not sustainable. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Remember, this is Adulting is Ghetto. I'm going to stop there, and I want to say this. The reason why I was still able to come on here today, even when I didn't feel like it, was not because I wanted to be more disciplined, was not because I was exercising discipline per se. It is discipline, right, to continue to do something that you said you were going to do without interruption. However, the thing that made it happen was that I created a system for me for recording these videos that is fairly simple to set up. I use Riverside. I use my laptop. I use the same exact location in the house. And when I record with Riverside, it automatically adds the intro and outro. It will do magic edit where it'll show me all the different areas where I may have screwed up, and I can just approve the changes and it just does it for me. And then I can export the video, upload it to YouTube, and boom, I'm done. I end up sometimes I'll get, based on what I talked about, I'll get a description drafted for me through ChatGPT, and it'll draft my description for the video, and then that's done. So, if anything, I would say the real success here is having removed the friction of showing up on YouTube, like a lot of the friction that comes with being super polished with how you do it. And I feel like that is really what is going to allow me to keep this promise to myself. Okay. um I'm not here to give anybody advice from a mountaintop. Even my books are not written in that way, because I'm actively growing through what I'm going through, if that makes sense. So this is just me sitting here saying I almost didn't do the thing. And I think that matters because a lot of people only show the polished side of their consistency. They show the results, they show the streak, they show the pretty thumbnails, they show, the upload schedule, but they do not always show the moment before the post when they almost talk themselves out of it. They do not show the negotiation. They do not show the resistance. They do not show the little voice saying, just skip today, nobody will know. Nobody even cares. You only have 2 views. But here's the thing, I would know. And sometimes that's enough. Self trust is built in these small moments. It is built when you do what you said you would do, not perfectly, not dramatically, not for applause, but consistently enough that your inner self starts to believe you. Because every time you make a promise to yourself and you keep it, you give yourself evidence. Okay? Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that you can follow through. Evidence that you can do hard things. Evidence that you can show up even when the mood is just not there. And every time you break a promise to yourself, especially without an honest reason, it chips away at that trust. It chips away at your self-confidence. Okay? That's just the real. Rest is real though. Emergencies happen, capacity changes, right? So sometimes the wisest thing for you to do is to pause. But when you know deep down that you can keep the promise in a modified way and you choose to do that, something powerful happens. You stop being so fragile with your goals. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop letting your mood run the whole show. You stop believing that every day has to feel magical for your life to move forward. That is the grown woman work, y'all. Because a lot of adulting is not glamorous. A lot of adulting is just repetition. It's showing up, it's resetting, it's trying again when you fall, doing the small things, choosing the right next step, not making your feelings the enemy, but also just not letting them be the boss of every decision that you make, right? So today's lesson is simple. Lower the bar, don't drop it. If the full version feels like too much, do the lighter version. If the polished version feels impossible, do the honest version. Okay? If the long version feels draining, do the shorter version. If the big task feels overwhelming, do the minimum viable version. But do not automatically drop the promise just because the ideal version is not available. That is a life skill, because this applies to everything: your health, money, your business, your relationships, home, your content, your purpose. There will be days when your best looks different. There will be days when showing up looks basic. There will be days when the win is simply not disappearing on yourself, and that's okay. You are allowed to be human and consistent. You are allowed to be tired and committed. You're allowed to honor your capacity and still keep your word. Those things can coexist. So that is today's video. Shorter, less polished, but just honest. I almost didn't post today, but I'm here. And sometimes that is the whole victory. Not because this is the most perfect video, not because this is going to be the most viral video, not because I had some dramatic breakthrough or anything, but because I kept a promise to myself in a way that honored where I actually am today. And maybe that is the reminder that somebody else needs, you know, and I'm happy if that is the case, if you're watching this and it's going to encourage you to not give up on yourself. But just remember, you don't always have to do the most. You do not always have to perform at your highest level. You do not always have to make it pretty. Sometimes you just need to keep the thread from breaking. So I want to know, what is one promise you made to yourself that you are trying not to abandon? And what is the smaller, softer version of that promise that you can keep today? Drop it in the comments if you want to share. And if this video resonated with you, like it, subscribe, and just stick around, because we are going to continue to talk about adulting, lifestyle design, soft life strategies, singlehood, child-free living, location independence, and just building a life that actually feels like yours. Because adulting may be ghetto, but keeping promises to yourself, that is how you start getting your power back. That, my friend, is definitely not ghetto. Bye, y'all.